Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm the Dagger Velazi, and coming up in today's newscast. A second victim of last week's Jerusalem bombing terror attack succumbs to his wounds, leaving behind a wife and 6 children. After weeks of coalition talks, Likud and Otzma Yehudit reportedly signing the first agreement in the formation of the new government, and more parties soon set to follow. And later, have you ever wanted to fly in a drone? Well, a new pilot program is working to make that dream a reality. A second victim of last week's Jerusalem terrorist bombing succumbed to his wounds on Saturday. Tryman ben Maada made Aliyah from Ethiopia 21 years ago and leaves behind a wife and 6 children. He was injured on Wednesday in the bombing and was evacuated to Shaarei Tzedek Medical Center in Jerusalem. A statement from the hospital said that the trauma and intensive care units fought for his life, but unfortunately his injuries were too severe. Ben Maada was the second victim to have been killed in the brutal terror attack. The first was a 16-year-old boy, Israeli-Canadian citizen Aryeh Chechupak, a yeshiva student from Jerusalem's Har Nof neighborhood. He was laid to rest last week. The deadly terror attack, reminiscent of the bus bombings in the early 2000s during the Second Intifada, saw 2 bombs detonating in 2 separate locations in Jerusalem, one at the entrance to the city and the second at Ramot Junction. And now, new information exposed on an Iranian hacker group's posting of footage from last week's terrorist bombings in Jerusalem. Israeli authorities allegedly unraveled the mystery of how the group tapped into CCTV cameras. ILTV's Aaron Porras with the report.
In an unforeseen cyber strike on Israel's sense of security, Iran-affiliated hacker group Moses Staff posting new footage of the double bus bombing in Jerusalem on Wednesday, November 23. The group alleging to have been surveilling Israeli CCTV cameras for years and earlier publishing footage from cameras in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. At first, there was concern that the hackers had breached police cameras, access from surveillance cameras that caught the moment of the blast. After a check, however, it was determined that hacked CCTV was from a private Jerusalem security firm that operates surveillance cameras in non-restricted areas around Israel. Israeli officials downplaying the incident, saying that there has been no breach in any sensitive or classified information, and it's not connected to any official Israeli security branch. Other claimed breaches by the group include causing warning sirens to go off in Jerusalem and Eilat and posting personal information about IDF soldiers taken from their LinkedIn accounts. There's no known connection between the hackers and the bombers remaining at large, and security forces continuing the manhunt for their capture. The attacks killed a Canadian-Israeli yeshiva student who died on the day of the blast, and Ethiopian Jew Tryman ben Maada, who succumbed to his wounds on Saturday. Meantime, in Iran, hackers apparently disrupting the work of Tehran's Fars news agency, and the agency appearing to blame Israel. Fars News is among the primary sources for disseminating state-sponsored content, particularly against the popular protests in Iran following the death of Mahsa Amini in September. And the agency alleges that cyber attacks carried out against them on a near-daily basis from different countries, including the occupied territories, i.e. Israel. But they did not elaborate further.
And moving on to politics and the coalition talks, negotiations to form the new coalition under Prime Minister-elect Benjamin Netanyahu continuing this week with a number of reported advancements, but perhaps none as surprising as the formation of a brand new government ministry for right-wing head of the Otzma Yehudit party, Itamar Ben-Gvir. According to new information, Ben-Gvir was supposed to enter government as the Internal Security and Police Minister, but will now serve as the Minister of National Security, an expanded role. As part of the supposed agreements between the Otzma Yehudit leader and Likud, Ben-Gvir's new position will include powers over the border security forces and police in Judea and Samaria, which previously were in the hands of the IDF. As such, Ben-Gvir could conceivably intervene in matters of national security as well as even delay illegal settlement evictions. And already concerns mounting with respect to Ben-Gvir's expanded position, particularly in light of his pro-settlement politics, and especially following a recent altercation between left-wing activists and Israeli security forces in Hebron. Over the weekend, 2 soldiers suspended for allegedly taunting and assaulting 2 members of the controversial Breaking the Silence NGO. Footage of the incident shows the soldiers tackling a Breaking the Silence guide and punching him, while another soldier boasts that Ben-Gvir will sort things out in the city. Ben-Gvir, however, responding to the incident, saying that there is no room for harming such activists on the basis of their opinion, but that if it turns out the activists hurt the soldiers before the cameras were rolling, then they should be themselves arrested and stand trial. In the meantime, Defense Minister Benny Gantz, for one, blasting the new agreement, saying the new division will bring about a de facto annexation in Judea and Samaria at the expense of administration and security. The outgoing defense minister explaining that, quote, the idea of creating a private army for Ben-Gvir is a dangerous exercise of power and will lead to real security failures, adding that fragmenting ministries and government powers according to political necessity will lead to a sharp loss in the IDF and police's operational ability. For example, if a commander needs the powers of the border forces but they're off doing something else, or if the border forces will receive orders contrary to the needs or orders of the military at large, chaos will be created. And indeed, as of yet, it is unclear how operations will be impacted by the division in authorities. And joining us now with more on Ben-Gvir's new position and the coalition that is starting to take form is Alex Tryman, Jerusalem Bureau Chief of JNS, the Jewish News Syndicate. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
So it seems that after a few weeks, there's been a breakthrough in coalition negotiations. I want to get to Ben-Gvir in a moment, but first, what can you tell us about the ongoing negotiations? Who else has signed on or is on the verge of signing on?
Well, it looks like Otzma Yehudit, led by Itamar Ben-Gvir, has already signed an agreement, and there seems to be agreement also with the Shas party, led by Aryeh Deri. And the hopes are that the other two parties, United Torah Judaism and the Religious Zionist Party, led by Bezalel Smotrich, could sign in the coming days.
And so what can you tell us about Aryeh Deri? What ministries is Shas looking to take on?
Well, Shas is looking to get the Interior Ministry, which would be led by Deri. Also, they're looking at the Health Ministry. They're also looking for the Religious Affairs Ministry, as well as the Periphery Ministry.
So a lot of ministries going on to Shas, supposedly. What about Bezalel Smotrich, Religious Zionism? He has been the main obstacle to forming a coalition, demanding the Defense Ministry or the Finance Ministry. Will he come around, get off his high horse, so to speak, and get back to the negotiating table?
Well, I think there's been ongoing negotiations. There's a lot of bluster. This is the time in which Smotrich probably has the greatest amount of leverage that he'll have in this government, and he's certainly using it to get maximum assurances from the Likud party. He's likely to be the finance minister in the next government. I don't think that he'll become the defense minister. Looks like probably that will stay within the Likud, as with the foreign ministry, with Yoav Gallant probably the most likely candidate of being the defense minister.
And yet we see that the Likud, Netanyahu, is handing out quite a lot of ministries. There are reports coming in today that there is some resentment within the Likud as to its coalition partners and their large appetites, for these top ministries. What do you make of this?
Well, again, this is a lot of bluster, and certainly there are many parties and also ministers or Knesset members within the Likud that want to get the highest possible appointments. Note that there are going to be 64 Knesset members that are part of the coalition. There's going to be close to 30 ministries. And then on top of that, there are many chairmanships available for Knesset committees. So I do think that there are enough positions to go around. And, right now, this is the time of the horse trading in Israeli politics. But once these agreements are signed, and I think that will happen during this week, then I think you'll start to see everybody sort of settle down and start getting to work.
And yet, what ministries are going to stay within the Likud, other than the Defense Ministry and the Foreign Ministry? What other top ministries is Netanyahu looking to keep for his own people?
Also, the Justice Ministry will probably remain within the Likud. And then are the smaller ministries, and there's a lot of them. And it's really just a question of what Netanyahu is forced to give over to the other parties in the process of the negotiations. Remember that the Likud has 32 seats out of the 64 in the coalition, with the other 32 belonging to the other three parties. So there are many within the Likud that want the maximum number of ministries to stay with members of the Likud, and many of them have worked for many years to try to climb up the ladder and to get those ministries. But this is a negotiations process, and there's probably no better master of these negotiations than Netanyahu, and he'll do what is needed in order to get his coalition members in line and also to keep the members of his own party reasonably happy.
Now, I do want to go back to Itamar Ben-Gvir. A new ministry was created just for him. We've just heard that there's been some criticism of this new role, saying it's dangerous for Israel's security. Is this the case? Has Netanyahu given too much power over to Ben-Gvir?
Well, Ben-Gvir demanded to get the public security ministry even in advance of the election, and it's been clear since day one that Netanyahu was prepared to give him that ministry. In terms of, what are the roles of the different ministries, I think Netanyahu is doing his best to try to carve out responsibilities that balance the demands of his various potential coalition partners.
But I want to stop you for a second because, yes, Ben-Gvir has said that he wanted the public ministry from the onset, but what we're seeing here, to my understanding, is sort of an expanded role of that ministry. Netanyahu has given him more leverage, more power within the public security ministry than is traditionally given. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's because the defense ministry traditionally handles, Judea and Samaria, while the National Security Ministry handles inside of Israel proper. And Ben-Gvir, representing the Otzma Yehudit party and living himself in Hebron, is taking has greater demands to affect security inside of Judea and Samaria. And in fact, that's one of the big issues of the coalition negotiations in general, is whether or not the so-called settlements in Judea and Samaria would be regulated and come under traditional Israeli law and stop being administered more exclusively by the defense ministry. I don't think this is a very big shift in terms of balance of power and Ben-Gvir getting too much power. I mean, you have to remember that Ben-Gvir running together with Bezalel Smotrich did rise tremendously in the polls and got 14 seats, making them the third largest party in the Knesset and the second largest party in the government until those factions split up. So he does have a tremendous amount of popular support right now. And in general, the popular support was because of his security policies that he ran on. And so I think Netanyahu is prepared to give him the authority to put policies into motion. Whether he'll be able to do that is a different question. I mean, the police and the other internal ministry agencies, have been running for years, and they're hard-fought bureaucracies. And it'll be interesting to see if Ben-Gvir actually succeeds in moving the dial with regard to Israeli security.
All right, well, coalition talks underway, and we will keep following until a new government is formed. Alex Tryman, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you so much.
And now, turning to a case of road rage, which has riled the nation. Last week, ILT reported on the stabbing to death of medical worker Yuri Volkov in the central city of Hulon. Police have now arrested the suspected attacker, and he will be charged with murder. The suspect of the brutal road rage stabbing has been identified as 23-year-old Adi Mizrahi. Two police officers arrived at a Hulon apartment to arrest the suspect, who attempted to escape arrest by releasing his dangerous pit bull on them. Police were forced to shoot and kill the dog, lightly wounding the woman who owned the apartment. Mizrahi was then apprehended. Yuri Volkov was stabbed to death after a brief confrontation with Mizrahi, a motorcyclist who had illegally passed a red light, endangering Volkov and his wife. His wife took a picture, apparently provoking Mizrahi to stab the victim in the heart. Volkov collapsed and died moments later.
אמרנו אסור זה, ואני הסתכלתי וראיתי שהוא משהו לא בסדר, ואני אמרתי לי, אולי אני אצלם אותו אחר כך לשלוח למשטרה, הוא משהו, יש לו משהו. וזה היה סיבה שהוא ערוך אותו.
At first, the police considered a manslaughter charge against Mizrahi, but quickly changed it to murder following a public outcry. Family and co-workers from Ichilov Hospital in Tel Aviv attended Volkov's funeral. He worked at the hospital's emergency room for 20 years and was remembered as a sensitive and humble person. He's survived by his wife, 3 children, and a granddaughter. And now, moving back to Doha, Israeli media and fans, while technically welcome for the World Cup in Qatar, increasingly faced with anti-Semitism and anti-Israel reactions, both from fans and officials alike. ILTV's Aaron Porras reports.
A captured moment of lighthearted fun and energy between openly Israeli press and Iranian soccer fans at the FIFA World Cup in Qatar. But interactions like these seemingly the exception and not the rule at the world's first World Cup in an Arab country. This as openly Israeli fans, journalists, and former players increasingly faced with anti-Israel rhetoric, if not open anti-Semitic sentiments, and even hostility. Former Israeli football player Eli Ohana, for example, faking Portuguese citizenship in a conversation with Qatari police as the officer was giving him a ride. The officer telling Ohana that were he really Israeli, as Ohana initially admitted, he'd stop the car and turn back. Likewise, Ynet journalist Raz Shechnik posting a number of his filmed interactions with fans from all over the world, rejecting Israel's right to exist and making a point to express their political affiliations.
This?
Yes.
For Israel?
No.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Why?
I'm sorry, thank you.
Arabic.
Which channel is this?
Israel channel. You don't like us?
Raz then going on to write that he always thought journalists were not the story, but that after 10 days in Doha, it's impossible not to share their experiences, that they feel hated and unwelcome. One initially friendly Qatari even reportedly telling him that he, quote, would like to say welcome, but you are not blessed. Fly away from here as fast as possible, end quote. Media personality Guy Hochman similarly exposing this reality, albeit through satire, as he passes from one anti-Israeli fan to the next in this now viral video on Twitter. Hochman writing that at the World Cup, quote, I tried to make peace with Arab countries. In any case, while certainly many interactions were more favorable, it seems apparent that FIFA's hopes of unifying the world through sport are undermined by Qatar's warning to Israelis to, quote, downplay their identity.
And joining us now with more from Doha is Israeli soccer fan Michael Yankalevitz. Michael, thank you for joining us. Michael, how is the atmosphere in Doha for Israelis right now?
It's fun, there's hype, and I'm shocked to read the reports that the situation is bad. I think these Israeli journalists are going with the magnifying glass, looking for people to bash Israel. The atmosphere here is totally the opposite.
So I see that right now you are in the stadium watching games. How has it been for you? You say that you haven't experienced any anti-Semitism, any anti-Israel sentiment.
Not at all. I'm now at the Al Rayyan Stadium, where Costa Rica have caused a major upset by beating Japan 1-0. Last night I was at the Argentina-Mexico game, where Argentina won 2-0 in front of a crowd of 89,000. The atmosphere is great. There is no anti-Semitism, no public attack on Israel. But as I said, if a journalist will go and look for a Palestinian or some fan who has come from outside of Qatar to bash Israel, they'll find them. But by and large, there are no problems here.
And what are those guidelines? Can you share those with us?
Okay, the guidelines are don't flout your being an Israeli, but I'll give you an example. The official sponsor for Israeli media of the World Cup is Kan, the Israel Public Broadcasting Corporation. They have a major studio in the fan zone in Al Bida Park, where it is written in Hebrew and there is an insignia of Kan. They have over 100 journalists here and technicians who are manning the studio. The problem is the print journalists who go and look specifically for those Palestinians or anti-Israel bashers.
All right, Michael, well, I'm really happy to hear that you have been having a very positive experience, and I hope that more Israelis like you are enjoying their time in Doha at the World Cup. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
It's been a pleasure.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump once again stirring up controversy after hosting a dinner with rapper Kanye West and white nationalist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes. The details in the following report. Former U.S. President Donald Trump defended hosting white nationalist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes at a dinner at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. Trump said Fuentes was not invited, but rather arrived together with rapper Kanye West, who himself has made numerous anti-Semitic remarks in recent weeks. In a statement, Trump said that Kanye West very much wanted to visit Mar-a-Lago. He said the dinner was supposed to be only the two of them, but that Kanye, who goes by the name Ye, arrived with Fuentes, a guest whom the former president says he had never met and knew nothing about. Kanye West recently announced his 2024 presidential bid and asked Trump to be his running mate, has made a number of anti-Semitic comments, most prominently posting on Twitter that he would go DEFCON 3 on the Jewish people. The dinner has received a lot of criticism, including from former U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman, who served in the role under Trump's administration. Friedman tweeted, "To my friend Donald Trump, you are better than this. Even a social visit from an anti-Semite like Kanye West and human scum like Nick Fuentes is unacceptable. I urge you to throw those bums out, disavow them, and relegate them to the dustbin of history where they belong." And moving on, have you ever wanted to fly in a drone? Well, it may be possible in the near future, thanks to Israel's National Drone Initiative, now entering its second phase. All the details in the following report. A new pilot project by the Israel Innovation Authority, together with Ayalon Highways, the Ministry of Transportation, and the Civil Aviation Authority, will test the capabilities of drones to carry large cargo and even passengers across Israel's skies. The pilot will invest 60 million shekels in 10 Israeli drone companies, which will participate in 1 week of flights nationwide every month for the next 2 years, completing 24 trials in total. The demonstrations will take place under managed airspace. Among the companies selected to participate include Airways Drones, which operates an AI-based system for smart management of airspace and drone fleets, Kando Drones, a drone airline, and Air Taxi Israel, an advanced air mobility company. The pilot project aims to expand experiments with long-range aircraft carrying heavy loads. The goal is that in the future it will be possible to fly passengers from place to place and improve the congestion situation in Israel by using drones. It is a direct continuation of the first national drone initiative carried out in 2020 to 2022, which saw over 15,000 drone flights carried out in various locations across Israel, experimenting with flights to meet commercial and public needs. The initiative is also part of a collaboration with the World Economic Forum and received extensive international exposure to global regulators, industry, and media, establishing Israel as a global leader in developing this rapidly expanding ecosystem. And now China has won the World Team Chess Championship held this year in Jerusalem. The week-long chess tournament came to an end on Friday with China beating rival Uzbekistan in the competition's finals on Friday, and with Spain claiming the bronze title over India. 12 of the leading men's teams, including Israel, competed for the world title in the tournament held in the capital city. The Israeli team, led by Maxim Rodstein and Ilana David, was eliminated from the competition on day 3 and did not advance to the quarterfinals, losing to Azerbaijan and tying for 4th place in their group together with Poland. Team USA was also eliminated and failed to advance to the quarterfinals, though it is ranked first worldwide. Russia and Belarus were banned from the competition due to the invasion of Ukraine, but Kiev sent a team. Yet despite Israel's loss in the tournament, Dr. Tzvika Barkai, chairman of the Israeli Chess Federation, said hosting the tournament in Israel's capital was a big win. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight, you can expect partly cloudy skies along and steady temperatures with an average low of about 13 degrees Celsius or 56 Fahrenheit. And then tomorrow, seeing more cloudy skies overhead and the average high expected to reach a comfortable 24 Celsius or 76 degrees Fahrenheit. That's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channels on YouTube, Facebook, and Telegram, and subscribe to our ILTV newsletter. I'm the Dargaveh Lazi. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.